Good morning. Wait, good afternoon, and thank you all for joining us. It's been one of those days. Been going fast. I think it's morning until I've eaten lunch. So thank you all for joining us here this morning. So we got a great and relatively new subject matter to talk about today, and many of you may be familiar with the opportunity around Roth conversions. Some of you may not. But by the end of the webinar, I think you'll have a pretty good idea of the opportunity that is available and the process that you have to go through and some of the things that you need to consider. So we've got the coach on with us today, David Pimper. Dave has graciously agreed to do some what we call 2020 sales focuses. And what that means is we spend just a quick 15 to 20 minutes of your time and go through what we think is a really valuable sales idea. So we're going to do that right now. I'm going to turn over to the coach. Dave has got about 40 years of experience in our business, 560 or so seminars under his belt, radio for the past 13, or has over 25 years of experience in radio, and does both securities and insurance. So very well-rounded and very active sales and marketing producer, and very technically sound as well. So with that, I'm going to turn over to the coach, Mr. Dave Pimper.
Hey, thank you very much, Steve. That was kind of you. And thank you. We got a good turnout for Thursday afternoon, end of the week. I'm very happy. The amount of people that really want to learn a little about Roth conversions. And I'll tell you, if you haven't done a Roth conversion before, you're missing an important part of the market. And like a lady I was talking today is anti-Roth conversion. Her accountant said she doesn't make much money. She had very little in this retirement plan, only 8,000, and she said you should be rolling that over into a Roth. Well, we figured out that her taxable bracket when she retires in 2 years is probably going to be zero. I mean, so what's the difference if you've got some money in a traditional or in a Roth? But most people, if they're going to be in a tax bracket, in a higher tax bracket, which a lot of our clients are, having that tax-free income withdrawals versus taxable could be a big, big deal. Now, if you have any questions today, just certainly go ahead and punch them on in, and we'll be happy to go in and answer those for you. Steve, am I going to run those today, or are you?
You have the helm.
I do. Okay, I'm trying to find the little arrows there. So there they are. I got them. I got it here. Yep, I came to the party. See if I can do it again.
Well equipped.
There we go. Yeah. So the question to ask yourself is, why are Roth conversions timely? Why are they timely as a marketing strategy? So how can we make money and help our clients giving Roth conversion advice? Well, first of all, I'll say this. Pensions are disappearing. Pensions are disappearing. So income, substituting some other second source of income around Social Security is very, very important. The reduction in employee match programs, they went down in 2008, and then they came back some, and then they went down again in 2020 during the pandemic, and they haven't come back as of yet. High income investors, yeah, there's no doubt in a higher tax bracket. And if you have somebody, our income tax bracket or income taxes going up, or are they coming down in the future? Everybody says what? They're going to go higher. That means that tax-free benefit versus taxable, which is in tax-deferred 401ks, IRAs, etc., will be worth more in the future than it is right now. Now, get a load of this. Every traditional IRA holder can convert and delay paying conversion taxes. There's no income limit and there's no amount limit. But of course, it's going to be taxed. But there is no income limits and there's no amount limits. And I think that is extremely important to remember. Now, one of the things when you're talking about Roth conversions is that what is the basic difference between a traditional IRA and a Roth IRA? Well, it's like, I'm from Nebraska, so we do a lot of agriculture here. The crops are just going in. They're just being done going in right now. Normally by June 1, all the crops are in. And what happens is on a traditional IRA, you basically pay you're going in and you're getting a tax break on the seed of the crop. So if you put in 2,000 into a 401k or an IRA and it's pre-tax, it shows as no against your income. So if you make 50 grand and put in 5 grand, you're only going to show 45,000. So there's a tax break. But when the crop is harvested way many years down the road, that big crop, seed to the big crop, that's what you pay taxes on. So you do get a break right now, but you pay it back much later on. With a Roth IRA, you don't get any break going in, and you get all of the break with taxes coming out on the crop. So there's a lot more traditional money out there because it's been around since the late 74, the ERISA Act, but really didn't start showing up until late 70s, early 80s. What happens is the Roth has only been around 98, and it really wasn't until early 2000s that Roth became more popular. So tax deferred comes out as ordinary income tax versus tax free. Now, what's pretty interesting, if you ask someone, would a guaranteed, predictable, tax-free income be important to you? That's like asking someone, is oxygen important to you? Well, of course it is. Everyone's going to say yes. But they don't know that if you have a Roth and you put it into a fixed indexed annuity that has an income rider, that income rider is going to have tax-free income stream. That's pretty cool. Nowhere else can you find that. With a traditional IRA, you have RMDs. With a Roth IRA, there is no RMDs. And that's, if you're married, that's for the owner and the spousal privilege of the wife or husband, whoever inherits that IRA. There's no RMDs until it goes out of the husband and wife into the kids, etc. Now, when you're converting, why do people hesitate to convert? Everybody wants to go to tax-free, but they hate paying the taxes. So we've got there's conversion calculators that you can get them free off the net, the simple ones, but it just basically is going to show you of what bracket you're in, what kind of taxes that you're paying, and in the future, what type of return, and how long it takes. Normally, it takes 5 to 7 years to recoup that by converting into a tax-free account. If you have to pay the tax out of your conversion and sell more of your or sell more of your pre-tax money in your IRA or 401k or thrift savings plan, it normally isn't worth it. Then the break even goes out 13, 14, even 15 years. So you really need to be able, if you have a $3,000 bill, you need to have savings saved up to go in and to do that. I will say this right now about Roth conversions. Even though they're talked about a lot, and it's a hot topic, very few advisors really advise on how to do it and why they should do it. Now, with a Roth conversion, there's a 5-year rule. You have to hold to that each conversion for 5 years. For 5 years, each conversion. Now, what happens is that with an IRA, individual retirement account, what happens is that the holding period also is 5 years, but it really is less because let's say that you put a IRA contribution, not conversion, but an IRA contribution in on April the 15th, because you can do it up till tax time. Well, you've got 15 and a half months since the beginning of that year that you did it for, 2021. The government actually goes back to January 1 as if they all went in then. So you don't have really 5 years. You don't even have 4 years. You've got like 3 years, 8.5 months. That's all you've got with single individual IRAs, Roth IRAs. Once you start your first one, you start them all. That's when the clock starts. So if you do one a year later, you might only have 3 years, and do 5 years later, you have no years, nothing. It starts not with conversions. Everyone is on its own for a full 5 years. I have this question all the time. Am I too old for Roth conversion? Well, it depends. Maybe for yourself you could be, but how about the conversion for your inherited IRA? And it doesn't go away. If you still have 3 years left on your conversion and it's inherited, if those, say, kids sell it off, yeah, no, they're going to go on in and they're going to have taxation on the earnings on that unless it's been out the full 5 years. But one of the great things is that it's a great wealth transfer strategy. I had one client, he was a banker, ex-bank president, part owner of the bank, board of directors, sharp guy, bunch of daughters, like 6 daughters. He Roth converted like every year, 10 years before his death. And I said, Jim, you know what? You're never going to probably find, because he was in his near 90 when he passed. And he said, you know what? It's not for me. It's for my daughters. I want them to inherit this and not owe a penny of taxes on it. I would much rather pay the taxes now than have them pay the taxes when they get it. We'd all like to have parents like that, wouldn't we? Again, if you have any questions, certainly go in and type it on in, and I'll be more than happy to answer those for you. Now, here's what you want to consider before converting into a Roth IRA. Is your tax bracket going to be high enough to put you into a circumstance where the tax-free benefit really is a help? How soon do you need the money and income? Because if you need it right away, you might not want to do that Roth conversion. Remember, it's after-tax money, the corpus of it, but the earnings is what it does. It goes it's last in, last out. Okay, so that earnings, is it worth it if you have to take income right away? Yeah, the age of the client could be, if it isn't from a wealth transfer, tend to pass the assets to the beneficiaries. Remember, municipal bond interest is included in provisional income for Social Security. Roth income and distributions are not, and that's a really cool thing. They are not considered in the provisional income for Social Security. Okay? Now, I'll go back. I just went on. So why should you? Why should you introduce the Roth conversion? Well, if you're the first advisor that explained it to them, and there's a way to go on in, I mean, a lot of wealthy people are doing this right now. It's a hot, hot subject. On my radio show, Retirement Boss Radio, we bring this up quite often because people are very interested to know, is it worthwhile for them? It views you, makes you look, even though you may not be, but knowledgeable, very knowledgeable on Roth conversions. Certainly starts that trust relationship. You can look at the client's entire portfolio, which you have to do. Just opens up discussion for other recommendations of investments and strategies on their portfolio. Hopefully, it creates an opportunity for you to close business. Ed Slott, well-known IRA expert, has a book out, The Retirement Savings Time Bomb, and how to defuse it. Here's what Ed says. Roth IRA conversions are the silver lining to the economic crisis. These may be the lowest tax rates you'll see for the rest of your life. You can hate Trump, President Trump, or you can love him. But most people, not all, but most people got a tax break, and it's better to convert during lower tax times. Who might be a good candidate? Someone who wants to manage their tax liability in retirement, or reduce the taxation of Social Security in retirement. Might be able to stay under married and filing jointly, it's under $32,000. Maybe you can put enough into Roth conversions and take that income. It's not going to affect your because provisional income does not include with Roth distributions. People who want to avoid RMDs, required minimum distribution. Secure Act 2.0 hopefully will be implemented by the end of the year, and it's very partisan, so I think that it will. And actually, next year it's going to go up to age 73, and then in 9 more years up to 75. So that's a good thing for the American public. But if you just want to go in and completely ignore them, put money into Roth. How long you'll need the money, the longer you can leave it wait, the better it is. You don't need that money really for living expenses. Yeah, I mean, those are just some easy to understand things, why and who may be a good candidate, or if you want to leave that tax-free legacy for one of your children. Who isn't a good candidate? Well, you need to access your money before that 5-year time period. If you're not going to be in any bracket or a very low bracket on the retirement, very well may not be. Can't afford to pay the income taxes on the conversion from other outside savings or assets. Those are really the 3 big reasons you wouldn't convert. Is not a good candidate. This is a myth. A conversion may be great for young people who have many years before they retire, but it doesn't make sense for older individuals. Just talked about the banker. He wanted that tax-free transfer. Here's the truth. Older people many times want to give that legacy. And if they can do it from a tax-free standpoint, the better it is. So I'm going to end on this, and then, Steve, I will turn it over. I know we'll probably have a few questions, but there's no saying. It says, procrastination is my sin. It brings me constant sorrow. I really shouldn't practice it. Perhaps I'll stop. Tomorrow never comes to the procrastinator. And I use this line a lot to get people off of dead center. If you heard something today, maybe something you're not using, you're not doing any or many conversions. You know what? You should. Or bring it up. It'll make it makes you look knowledgeable. You're going to do something that the average advisor does not do. It sets you apart, and you might be the first one in your area that has really done it. There's a big radio. I'm also on radio, but a personality, and he really just he builds his livelihood on Roth conversions, and he does most of it with fixed indexed annuities. And so that's something you want to think about. So, Steve, I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to you. We'll maybe put up a poll, see if anybody would like to talk about Roth conversions or maybe some other marketing. And remember, sales, be proud to be a salesperson. It's a great time to be in this business. And with the markets as volatile as they are, and with as cloudy and gloomy as the clouds look in the future, those fixed products like fixed and fixed indexed UILs, they have great meaning right now, more than they ever had in a big bull market. I think we've got just a really great couple of years coming in front of us in that fixed marketplace.
Great stuff, Dave. A lot of great information. It did generate up a lot of questions. So some kind of very similar. So hopefully I can kind of read through a few here. So you mentioned the 5-year wait on conversions, and the 5-year clock starts ticking at the time of the last conversion. It's last in, first out. So I think that generated a few questions from a number of folks about exactly what would happen. Let's say that Joe converted his IRA to a Roth IRA, and then 3 or 5 years later needed to take some money out. Could he take money out from the first conversion tax free?
Yep, because it's 5 years. Yep,
Okay.
But let's say you want to take it out in 3 years. Oh, now it's a portion, but remember, it's first in, first out. So what happens is that original, say he converted 50,000,
Mm-hmm.
and that 50,000 grew to 60,000.
Yep.
Well, that's 60,000. There's 10,000 to gain. That's the last to come out. So if he needs that money, he wouldn't be taking his tax-free money. It's just a return of principal, which is a non-taxed event.
Got it.
Then when he got into the actual earnings, now he would have to pay some taxes because he hasn't let it into the full 5 years. Lastly, conversions. Every conversion is unique on its own 5-year time period. Not the case with an IRA. With a Roth IRA, the first one starts the clock. Every other one after that goes back to that first date that started the clock. So if you're out 5 years, you put money in a regular IRA contribution, say 6 or 7,000, that money is instantly tax free. That's the difference between those two.
Got it. Got it. If anybody wants to re-ask a question that maybe we didn't get answered there, that would be helpful. Go ahead and shoot another note.
Steve, can I ask a question to you?
Sure.
I want to make sure that I said this correctly. But in a fixed indexed annuity, and say you've got an income rider, and let's say you took it out when you were 50, 55, you let it go to 70, 72. In today's day and marketplace, what would be a pretty good distribution rate? Would it be somewhere between 5.5% and 6%, maybe?
Yep. I was going to say probably between 5 and 6. Now some might be lower and some might be higher, but you're going to probably
that's right.
Right in between there at that age of 72.
Yeah. Okay. So let's say it's grown to 100 grand, and you're 75 and you can take 6% out. So that's 6,000 a year. You take it out monthly. Okay. Mm-hmm. So you're going to go in and take $500 out a month. If it's in a Roth and that rider income, that is tax free, isn't it? That rider income.
Correct.
Yep. Okay. So I was sure it was, but I like to say it back because that's where that. Again,
it's a pretty great deal.
Predictable. Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, do you know any other strategy that you can do that? A tax free income stream that's guaranteed
for as long as you live.
For life? No, you can't. No. You can't. So it's predictable, it's sustainable, and it's tax-free. Those three things together, pretty darn hard to beat. Yep.
Yeah. I think you and I both know some producers that are anti-income rider. I know you don't always like an income rider, but if you think of the opportunity or the value that you could bring to a client when you say, hey, let's convert this your IRA over to a Roth IRA so that I can show you a stream of income that you can't outlive, that will be non-taxable and won't affect your Social Security benefits under the current law. That's ridiculous.
Well, yeah. There's a lot of check marks on those boxes, isn't there?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Darn right. Darn right.
And again, if we can answer one or two, there's a few questions about that. So if there's somebody that doesn't feel like we got that question completely answered, type it in, and I'll try and re-ask it in a way that answers your question. Roth convert. Okay. So the question is regards the 5-year wait in the event of death. So Joe is 62. He converts. He does a mass conversion of his entire Roth IRA or his entire IRA to a Roth IRA. 2 years later, he passes away. Does that go to his beneficiaries with a portion or all that tax? Is it tax-free at all at that point?
Well, if it's with the wife, there's going to be normally a spousal privilege. That's right. Mm-hmm. So she'll retain that Roth as if she started it herself. But happens to surrenders. I go back on this. But the 5-year wait is still in place. So if 3 years have been already elapsed, there would still be 2 years left. That question comes up a lot because Roth RMDs it sounds kind of like a surrender charge, which can be waived from an annuity, but it's not with a required minimum distribution. The government, what happens is the government goes in from that Roth, and they'll allow you to keep it, but you still have 2 years left. If you took it all out, portion of it would be taxable. So you just got to make sure that is the case.
So you need to kind of wait out that in best case scenario, if you can, you need to wait out that 5 years before you take the money out.
You do. And I've had it before where, well, you know what, when kids, no matter how old they are, they get the money, they want it now. I mean, they're going to pay their house off. They're going to buy the second. They're going to spend that money somehow. I've had it before. It was a pretty good sized Roth, about 400,000, and they were about 2.5 or 3 years in. They took out everything but the earnings. And so how was the taxation on that? Mm-hmm. Nothing. Return of principal. And then they kept the earnings in there for the 5 year. In fact, they said they were going to take it out, and they haven't yet. And it's been was 2 years. It's been 4 years since this one, and they I think the investment has done well too, so they left it in there. But there's different strategies, but they did not want to have that taxation on their their tax sheet, because they're a pretty high tax bracket and so forth. So that it was really just kind of tax plan, and they help them with that planning. Yep.
You mentioned at the outset, and there are a couple of questions that popped up right away, and I just didn't ask them at the time. But you mentioned at the outset that there are no limitations on Roth conversions. In other words, no income limitation, no age limitation, no reason that someone can't convert their IRA into a Roth IRA. Is that the same for a 401k or 403b?
Yeah, it's interesting. So we know that there are income limits for regular Roth contributions, and they're pretty high. But if you make I'm within a few thousand. I think it's 196,000 is when you start phasing out, and like at 207,000, you're phased out completely. You get no benefit to do a Roth. The interesting thing is, in a 401k, makes no difference how much money you make. You can put into a Roth 401k, so that's pretty cool. The second thing is that if you're converting money, it makes no difference how much income you make. You can still convert. It makes no difference the amount, because you know what? Why does the government, Steve? Why does the government on a conversion? Well,
they
make you pay because they want their tax money. They're going to get paid sometime, whether it's upon death or the people take it out of a traditional IRA. So a Roth is a great. I'm telling you what, most advisors don't recommend Roths. Don't talk the Roth talk just because they don't do enough of them. I mean, every single person I talk to, I say, have you Roth converted, or do you have Roths? And you're seeing people have more of them now, but still it isn't everybody. So we want to be one of the first ones to go in and be the mouthpiece, for that idea.
And so Joe has a 401k. He just can't say, hey, I'm going to convert all of my 401k to a Roth IRA. He still has to follow within the guidelines of his 401k. For instance, maybe they don't allow non-hardship.
I see. Yeah. So what happens is, on a 401k, interesting. Here's one of the things on the Secure Act 2.0 they're coming out with, and I hope it passes. But do you know why there isn't a lot of Roth 401k?
Why?
Because you can't get a company match on that money. Did you know that?
No, I guess I never thought about it.
Yeah, wild. And so they're changing that. And it will hopefully change by the end of the year for 2023. You can do it, but there is no matching on the Roth money. That's ridiculous. It really takes away from the beauty of the Roth, and so hopefully that'll change this year.
But if somebody decides that they've got money already in their 401k and they want to do a conversion from their 401k account into an IRA, they could do that at 59.5, separated from service, blah, blah, blah. And they could also convert to a Roth IRA as long as they're willing to pay the taxes on it.
They could also do it on an in-service. They could do it still work there. Yeah, about that changed. I don't think how long ago that was. It's been a few years ago. It changed about 5-6 years ago. Before, you couldn't do a straight conversion, 401k to an IRA, 401k traditional into a Roth IRA. But now you can. And of course you should be able to. Now you can. That's right.
Yeah, makes sense. Yep. Let's see if we have any. There's enough questions here, Dave. I just want to make sure that I've kind of covered them.
Yeah, just as Steve's looking through this, everybody that is on the line with us in the webinar, those are quick hitters. You know what? We're about done because it's 2:30. So we want those done. I want the presentation to last about 15 minutes and 10-15 minutes worth of questions and answers. But this is about helping your production. And the one before we did was in-service non-hardship. Now we're doing Roth Conversions. In a couple, 2-3 weeks, we're going to do it's a sales process on some important things of the sales process of what to ask, what not to forget. But if you tune in, they'll be quick, to the point, and you can certainly mark yes if you want to, like here. If you want more information, we'll certainly get together, and you can. I'm a resource for IAMS. I'm trying to go in and help your production, give you ideas and ways to help your production.
Good stuff. I think we did cover most of the questions. I'm glad you mentioned. We did have on these. Often with our webinars, people join late that have heard kind of the IAMS commercials, which is fine. But we don't do the IAMS commercials for this one. So there are some people that join late and wonder what they missed. So we do record these, and we'll hang them out on the IAMS YouTube. So if you missed a portion because you were kind of waiting out the commercials, then you can tune back in on YouTube. Now, those usually take about a day to get out there. So this will be up on our YouTube site here shortly. David, you mentioned radio. I'm just going to Retirement Boss Radio. If you want to listen to a radio show, you can do that. Just go to this site. It's www.retirementbossradio.com, and then scroll down. And you'll hear Dave. He'll mention a few times Roth Conversions. You probably mention at least once a show, once every hour at least, Dave, would you say, or maybe not?
I would say, yeah. I mean, Roth's a hot subject, hot subject. Even if you don't actually do it for the clients, you get a lot of appointments of clients that want to know if it's worthwhile or kind of the ins and outs, and you're able to view the other portfolio. So it's one of the hotter things, I would say, maybe with the exception of Social Security and Medicare. I think that Roth Conversions is a very hot subject. Yeah.
Betcha. Good stuff as always. I appreciate you, Dave, taking some time out of your schedule. I know you've been running hard with appointments here over the past year, 10 years maybe. But I appreciate you taking some time out from your schedule. Thank you all as well on a Thursday afternoon, short holiday week for taking some time out and joining us also. Really appreciate that you tune into IAMS for some your training and educational and sales and marketing information. We appreciate that a lot. You have our 800 number. It's 800-255-5055. You're certainly at any point, we'd love for you to call in and let us know what we can do to help you. We're going to do everything we can. That's what we're here for. So appreciate you taking some time out this afternoon. Anything you want to say as we close up, Dave?
No, hey, thank you for everybody. Time is money in our business, so let's finish out tomorrow strong. I've written some of my best business on Friday, so don't take it off. Hey, have a great weekend.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye now.